the Travel Authority.
Yeah.
We have the Red Chief Hunt,
Okay.
Wayne, Jonathan Foster, Mr. Herman. Only 4 cards, sir.
Okay. Morning, sir.
Good morning, the Red Chief Hunt here in attendance. As far as Michael Moore traveling to association meetings, I totally agree. So let's get that done out the way. We support that in every form, in every fashion. The Red Chief Hunt.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah, so did this one A. And in the days of Eileen Decker with the FBI 1 Alpha. Yes. So this is the trip to give Mr. Moore, a.k.a. Chief Moore, a nice, pretty trip to Palm Springs, California to play golf and to relax in leisure while he pretends to go to the LA County Police Chiefs Association. It really doesn't exist, Eileen. This is just an excuse to go to a nice city with nice weather and play numerous golf courses in Palm Springs. But I will have to warn Mr. Moore, there's a lot of homosexuality that occurs in many of the hotels in
Off
Palm
topic,
Springs.
so stay on topic. Mr.
Yes,
Spender, last warning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Stay on the fucking time.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Yes, okay, so we support 1A on the recommendation of the Red Chief Hunt to have the Black Chief Hunt go to the White Chief Hunt, Michael Moore, to go to the Latino Chief Villanueva to support 1A so that Moore can get out and get into the sun while he enjoys his little association
Off topic.
meeting.
Next speaker, please.
He looks too
Jonathan
light in
Foster,
the fucking
please.
skin.
It's your last warning.
Okay, he needs a tan. Thank you, sir.
I forgot his name.
Jonathan Foster.
Wait, Mr. Herman, there will be no disrupting of this meeting, no giggling, no Googling, none of your noise. So that's your last warning. Okay. Morning, sir.
Hi. Over here in parentheses in your report, it says the words discourtesy and unlawful search. And one of the things I've experienced when I've been searched is then when the
What
police...
does that have to do with 1A?
Yeah, well, they left my car in a complete mess. Didn't put anything back. All my stuff was all
Off
over the
topic.
place. Then they did an unlawful search. It's kind of mean.
Mr. Herman.
Off to a wild start today.
Be nice. I'm trying, but he's... Put these back on here, please. Motherfucker. Bitch. So you heard, for the record, I, Dr. B, am granting to the chief, Mr. Michael Moore, to the conference of Palm Springs, you see? Even a stupid puppet knows where Palm Spring is. So, for the record, Mr. Wayne, down there on the end, on 247653, for the record, Mr. Wayne, I am here in support of the chief of police, Mr. Michael Moore, because he's white. Yeah. And I, Herman, no, I'm Herman. Yes, you, Herman, may travel one day to Palm Springs to visit all the golf courses with Mr. Spring Conference in Palm Springs, California. I never been to Palm Springs because I'm just a puppet. Mr. Herman, you been there before?
All the time.
What do you do there?
Well, I support police in their conferences.
Very good, Mr. Herman. You dumb motherfucker. Do your job. Support.
Off topic.
I'm trying. Pardon me, I got a minute and 26 seconds, sir.
You've been off topic. So
I'm in
that's
support.
your last warning.
I'm in support for the
chief of police travel expenses. And I am here under the Brown Act to volunteer my time to support the chief and recognize and support all the transparency which goes on in Palm Springs. Now I wish to waive my time of 1 minute back to you, asshole.
We have no other cards on this
Motion
side.
for approval on 1A. I'll
So
move.
moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, 1B, did we have any comments?
We have 3 comment cards. We have the Red Chief, Hunt, Wayne, and Mr. Herman.
It's $600 from the Police Relief Association. Are you speaking on that one?
The Red Chief in attendance, we do approve that. Get that done right away. Thank you, the Red Chief.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Wayne. And Mr. Herman.
Remember I told you. Remember he talked to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, yes. What they have here, $600 for the Relief Association. It's another one of Eileen Decker's money laundering targets, however, but I still, as a puppet, support shit like these. Recreational activities, swimming, archery, beating minorities. Yes, we support all of those things in the fucking Relief Association. We're giving relief to you. While everybody stays in the tents and dies in Skid Row, we're going to give $600
Mr. President,
for the
Off topic.
Hollenbeck.
Off topic.
Hollenbeck, hoo-hoo. Hollenbeck area, hoo-hoo. Hollenbeck cadet, hoo-hoo. Hollenbeck, hoo-hoo. Cadet program for $600. No matter what you do, you Jew, you will not win. The $600 comes
President's off
painfully.
topic.
Mr. Herman, please.
You want to speak? Your turn.
Well, so who's got the card, the puppet or you? Because only one of you is going to speak. Okay? So let's go. Spindler, I told you that was your last warning. If you want to stay in the meeting, but you're disrupting.
Dr. B, just pay attention to the pro. For monetary of $600 in the most poorest community known as Hollenbeck. How the hell do you support just $600 to a community that should benefit from the LAPD program of area cadets? Not that anyone's fucking cadets anymore, but for the record, I'd like to assume that the activities are not to fuck the cadets at the Hollenbeck
Mr. President,
area
speak off topic.
cadet
Off topic.
program. Pardon me?
Off topic.
What do you mean I'm off topic?
Say it again and you'll be sitting down. So go ahead. Stay on topic.
So, in support, like Dr. B said on item 1, Mr. Smith, the Inspector General, that of Mr. Michael Moore, I'm here in support, in cooperation, that we see all $600 spent well for the cadet program in Hollenbeck. And because you have a new chief that I may know by the name of Gallegos down there, I believe you should give him a stipend raise immediately and effectively as of today, since I represent the Brown Act and fuck
Off
you,
topic.
We have no other cards on this item, sir.
Motion for approve. I'll approve.
1B.
To approve 1B.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, 1C.
1C, we have 2 cards. We have Wayne and Mr. Herman.
So to honor the murderer William H. Parker, the former killer racist police officer chief, let's give $500. It's always good. Parker Center, Parker the terrorist, yes, the William H. Parker Police Foundation, named after the most murderous terrorist police chief in LA City history. And I go back a long way with Parker. back in 1952, my daddy met that son of a bitch.
President,
yes.
the speaker's off topic.
$500. I'm always off topic, old man, but I
You're
will
off topic
continue.
again.
I'm
And-
off.
Okay.
Mr. Herman?
No, there is no time. I'll tell you when there's a timeout. Your turn. Go ahead. Thank you, sir. You can go ahead, start the clock. He started his.
Fellow monetary divisions of food and recreation, this monetary of $500,000 for the terrorist LAPD William H. Parker to support LA Police Foundation under the utilized cadet program called, otherwise known as, Fuck the Police, Hollenbach. What was that? Fuck the police, Hollenbach. Because I know, Juju, where to go when I'm in Hollenbach. I'm in support of the H. Parker because, Juju, I've been there before when you incarcerated my one ass down there.
Off topic.
Fuck you and fuck the police.
And we have no other comment cards on this item?
I'll move approval of 1C.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, well, let's go to item 2A. Are there any commission questions about the department's report? No.
That's the
Commemorative. Do we have any public comments on 2A?
We have 3 comment cards. We have the Red Chief, Mr. Spindler, and Mr. Herman.
Okay.
All right, you guys, the Red Chief on the record. 2 minutes interrupted. Shouldn't be interrupted. But I do approve of the 50th anniversary. I want to see my brother honored, Van Johnson, at this thing. He was a falling officer in 97. So if you guys can, it's been approved, 150th anniversary, but honor my brother Van Johnson. Thank you, Zay, former
you, sir.
LAPD motorcade rider.
Mr. Spindler, followed by Mr. Herman.
So we honor 150 years of greatness for the LAPD. 150 years of beatings. 150 years of unlawful shootings. 150 years of racial profiling. And we're going to give a pretty commemorative, pretty badge. Yes, what should this badge look like? It should have the swastika in the middle of it, yes, followed by the American flag and the Euro flag to commemorate this lovely, lovely place that we are in here today. As you take down the old Parker Center, you put up the new Parker Center, which is the old Parker Center Redux 2.0. So we honor all of the people in Skid Row that you've killed unlawfully. Congratulations. All of the Latinos that you've killed in Van Nuys, North Hollywood, Tujunga, a.k.a. Tujunga, yes. And then in Sherman Oaks, where you take and beat the homeless so they move to the Van Nuys Aqueduct to live, so the Jews can live nice and pretty in their pretty homes. This is the LAPD, Miss Dicker. 150 years of terrorism. The first international domestic terrorist organization is the LAPD. They taught Al-Qaeda everything they know. People came here from all over the world. They wanted to know, how do I go back to my country to police? I watch LAPD. Murder, kill, torture. LAPD. Murder, kill, torture. LAPD. Happy birthday, you killers. Happy birthday.
Okay.
Mr. Herman?
So I'm back to explain why we celebrate just 150 years of torture and pain. All the rank and file who were discriminated and disciplined for no raise after 150 years because we forgot to adequately train. You see, I'm just a puppet and you puppet fools. But again, 150 years of anti-Semitism by police, racial profiling, little bears who wear love on their shirts, 150 years of racism against dark-colored skins like Mr. Herman the Beaner. And yet, you continue to celebrate without my participation? No. You see, I'm just really, wait a minute. No, yeah, that's right. Me and Wayne have seen how the 150 years of great policing at H. Parker and here in the First Street headquarters, we experiment with fools. But in celebration of how the fuck you say that number?
150 years? No, 150 anniversary. You see, Baltimore police had their bad experience. Los Angeles is having their bad experience. When you gun down a child in a mall because he suffers from mental health.
Next speaker.
We have no other comment cards on this item.
Move
sir.
approval of 2A. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, this is the InReach program, 2B. Okay. Let's see. Captain Newton's here. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Do we want to start with questions, or do you want to have a presentation?
I can start.
Let's go right to Commissioner questions. Is that okay?
Yes,
with
sir.
you guys? Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for this report. As you know, I am very hopeful about the promising practices in the Jail and Reach program, and I'm eager to continue to get more information and see how we can support the department in scaling this up. So I would love to just hear, I mean, we talked several months ago about improvements that you all wanted to make to the program, many of which required additional resources. And so we talked about if we could really identify and demonstrate the success, really evaluate the effectiveness of the program, that would help us to make a case for expanding resources. So that was over 6 months ago. So I'm curious what progress has been made in terms of your ability to really evaluate and demonstrate success, and what additional information you may have about the improvements that you want to make, the costs of those, et cetera.
Certainly. Over the past 6 months,
Excuse me, sir. Can you identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm sorry. Captain Gary Newton, Assistant Commanding Officer, Custody Services Division. And to my right, Senior Detention Officer Sergio Castrillon.
Thank you.
Over the past 6 months, we've met with the InReach service providers a number of times, attempting to create a method to track the appointment confirmation referrals. And that's really what we need to be able to track to determine the success, the overall success of the program. The InReach providers at this time and without funding are unable to effectively track the appointment referral confirmations. We have met with Jose Rodriguez of Council District 1 a number of times, and he is working on requesting funding for that specific purpose. and for a possible expansion of the program. This past week, myself, along with Senior Detention Officer Castrione, met with representatives from the Mayor's Office, the City Administrative Officer, and the Department Homeless Coordinator's Office to review existing program and discuss potential improvement options while leveraging existing resources. Some of these potential options included working with the Mayor's Office to provide additional resource options that may be offered at the time of service provider interview, exploring the possibility of utilizing service providers trained as diversion specialists, and leveraging the department's record management system to better identify those arrested who are experiencing homelessness. All of this in an effort to provide options to those arrested once released from custody. So we are working on several fronts with the Mayor's Office, the CAO, and CD1, as well as the service providers, to better refine the program, and it really comes down to funding for the tracking mechanism, and that's a CD1 lead.
And who funds the service providers?
The service providers, as far as the in-reach component, are unfunded. It's an unfunded mandate.
So they're just raising private resources they're not getting any government money, you mean?
They're not getting any government money to provide in-reach services in our jails, correct.
Okay. And how much would it cost to collect the data and evaluate it the way you've proposed?
According to Council District 1, it would take it would cost $210,000 annually.
And how much would you estimate the department spends on our part of this in terms of personnel, et cetera?
We draw from our existing resources. That's something that I would have to calculate.
Okay. So I'm just curious. I mean, the department is devoting resources to this in the form of personnel and other resources. So obviously there's some calculation that it's a worthwhile investment for the department to make. How are you evaluating the effectiveness? I mean, how are you deciding that this is a worthwhile investment for the department to make?
We meet monthly with the service providers as well as the city's medical services division, and we collectively discuss success stories, and those are the certain successes that have been captured by the 3 in-reach providers. And it's really when on those rare occasions when they are able to capture the follow-through and the success, for example, housing or provide DMV document assistance or that type of thing, they actually document some of those instances. In addition, we use our statistics as far as how many persons experiencing homelessness that actually have been offered services accept at least an interview with an in-reach provider. And those numbers are almost 3,500 over the last 2-year period.
Okay. And how is HOPE using the data that you're sharing with them, the HOPE teams?
We provide the data to HOPE. I don't have information on exactly what they do with it.
Okay. Is CD1 here? A representative from the council office, thank you. It looks like no. So if you would just let them know that, I appreciate their efforts in trying to generate resources for this and would be happy to partner with them and support them in any way that I can to expand the program, or at least to begin to collect the data that would be necessary to expand the program.
Certainly, we'll pass that on.
I have 2 quick ones. Of the thousands of people you say are contacted and asked, are you interested in receiving help, programs, outreach programs, how many say yes?
At this point, we have about 64% that
64%.
are agreeing.
Okay.
Some areas are much higher. For example, at MDC, 77% of the inmates are actually willing to come and speak to the service provider to receive services.
So that's good. And tell me if I'm interpreting this number right, but at the bottom of page 3, the total number of homeless was 746, of whom basically 80% had a mental illness or substance.
So after the service provider meets with the inmates, all of the inmates that we meet are classified as homeless, and we break it down. If they're just homeless, that indicates that number there. If they're homeless with mental illness, that reflects the number right underneath it, the 283. And if they're homeless with substance use disorder, then that reflects the number underneath. And then if they're dual diagnosed, then that reflects the numbers up. So all of these people are homeless. They're just homeless with more specific to what's going on with their homelessness.
But the percentage is astounding, that basically all of them is what you're saying. It's a compound issue. It's not just they're not, who commit these crimes that are arrested are not just homeless.
Right.
But they
so from the
also
data
have something else going on, specifically mental illness or substance abuse.
Correct. So between the homeless, substance use, and the dual diagnosed, as you can see, there's a larger number of homeless that are suffering from that.
Which means that the treatment recommended, if there's going to be help, is the majority of it is in one of those two areas.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Real tragedy.
I have a couple of basic questions because I was not here in September when you made your initial presentation, so apologies for perhaps going backwards a little bit. The report says you're operational 2 days a week at MDC and Valley. Is that 2 days a week in each or 1 day a week in each?
That is 2 days a week at MDC and 2 days a week at Valley, 1 day a week at 77th Regional Jail.
And 1 day. Okay. And the report indicates you've contacted 3,459 individuals. Is that your, do you feel that that's the entire pool of individuals who are homeless and need assistance, or are there many people that haven't even been touched yet by this program?
There are absolutely people that have not been touched by this program. By operating 2 days a week, we can't possibly touch every homeless individual that passes through our system.
Do you have a best estimate as to how many people come through our jail system that would be in need of these services? I think that goes a little bit to what Commissioner Goldsmith was talking about earlier of getting not just a handle on the problem, but a handle on how much we have to scale this program to address the services needed.
We've just, up until a few months ago, we didn't have a mechanism in place to track homelessness. We've since revised our inmate classification assessment, and that is one of the questions we ask if the individual is experiencing homelessness. So as of right now, we're tracking that on paper. Within the next 6 to 12 months, we intend to have that question and related questions added to the department record management system that will better track the exact number of persons who pass through our facilities experiencing homelessness.
For our purposes right now, since you're, say, at MDC 2 days a week, that's 40% of the time, do you think we can, is it fair to just extrapolate the percentage and come up with an estimate?
I think that's one piece of it. We could come up with an estimate that way, but we also need to look at under the previous system, the way these numbers were calculated. We went through our custody cards to determine that those that self-reported not having a residential address, but that didn't capture all of those individuals that were experiencing homelessness because they may use a relative's address or they may use a shelter address or something like that. As of recent, we've now begun specifically asking that question, are you experiencing homelessness? So I think if we look back and calculate a number, that would not accurately reflect the number that are homeless.
But you're expecting in 6 months to have more accurate information, but even what you have right now shows a tremendous need for the services that are being provided.
Yes.
Chief, did you want to add?
Just as a reminder, the last week, the fourth quarter homelessness report, I believe it has those statistics that you're asking for as the department's, in its imperfect systems, it's a bit subjective in identifying those persons experiencing homelessness that are subject to being placed in custody for various offenses, from felony misdemeanors to infractions, and to what overall percentage that is of the overall representation. I think we can go back to that figure, and certainly Commander Chow, I'll ask him to follow up with you on that.
Sure, but I think it would be helpful, and maybe Mr. Teefank, if you could make a note that maybe the next time these reports are coming up, particularly since they're so close in time, maybe they could be presented on the same day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on 2B?
Yes, sir. We have 8 common cards. The first 4, Red Chief Hunt, Mr. Herman, Mr. Spindler, and George Bazzetti.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I start over.
Hey, the Red Chief Hunt. The number of people coming out of jail or homeless, how many of them are going to intern housing? That's the main thing. When you come out of jail, a lot of people don't have housing and things like that, but it's only one organization that's getting housing for people. That's Housing for Health. After going to the LAHSA meetings and attending the LAHSA meetings, a lot of these groups are far in between, so they're not housing people. So my big question is, how many people are going to intern housing, getting them prepared for housing that's going to get them permanent housing? That would be my main question right here. It's a lot of people in jail, and it's a lot of people that are homeless, and it's a lot of people commit crimes because they are homeless. So the numbers are probably kind of off here, but like I said, I go to the LAHSA meetings, and they say the groups that are trying to get them housing are far in between, so you got to watch out for that. But how many are going to intern housing to actually get housing in permanent housing? So those are some of the kind of questions I got. I am the Red Chief Hunt, and I'm experiencing homeless now. So, I mean, I'm going through the whole program, so I know who's doing what and what's going on, things like that. So I want to know if you guys are working with LAHSA and like I said, the intern housing, that is it. And I'm going to ask all my people to take this very serious. No puppets, talk from the heart and stuff like that. So please take off your puppets and talk responsibly on this issue. The homeless people, thank you, the Red Chief Hunt.
Thank you, sir.
MAG, Make America Great. I, the plaintiff, knowingly and unlawfully found out that I was by design homeless. I was threatened. I was harassed.
Off topic. This isn't about
This is
you.
about
This
homelessness.
Is about it isn't.
Goddamn motherfucker. Let me finish. You don't even let me start.
Okay, so off topic again. Your time's up on this. Next speaker. Next speaker.
Mr. Spindler.
Fuck you, HHH, you stupid fucking billionaire Jewish developer
So,
and
Mr.
you asshole.
What's his name? Herman? Mr. Herman, you should leave the meeting. Well, can we escort him out, please? Let's go ahead. Mr. Spindler? You're continuing to disrupt the meeting. Okay.
Section 8, you motherfucker. You're not helping me through LAHSA, you bitch. Fuck all you.
Yes, I believe he said fuck all of you. Fuck all of you again. Okay, very good. So again, this is one of our more happier meetings today, yes. So we talk about what happens when you get out of the Metro Division after arrest and you're put back on the fucking streets of slavery. Yes, that's what we talk about all the time. Well, you need a house. And a house is not a tent. You need to outreach by in-reaching. I thought you outreach, but when you in-reach, that's when you take and you stick something up somebody's asshole, when you in-reach. And we don't want that. We want outreach before the criminal becomes a criminal. People on the streets need housing, and they get arrested because they're hungry, and they do all kinds of things to get into jail. And then they get out of jail, and it's called rejuvenism.
Recidivism.
Oh, recidivism, yes. They commit more crimes. Like, for example, taking a brick and throwing it through the back window and breaking in pretty cars, yes, to get money and laptops for crack. This is what we do. A cycle of poverty that cannot be broken. Even though you have billions and billions of dollars to house all of these people, you want to re-arrest, re-incriminate, and then re-reach. And the reason you do that, it's called money laundering. So you can have a perpetual multi-billion-dollar taxpayer-funded bond of slush money for pigs. Not helping people, but fucking.
Okay, next speaker, please.
The next speaker is George Bazzetti, followed by Gina Viola and Jonathan Foster.
George Bazzetti, former Director of Policy for the Congress of Racial Equality of California. And 54 years, a fraud buster and civil rights leader knows all your stupid tricks. Let's go to all your stupid LASA, Joint Powers Authority. Y'all brag about building 3,362 units for the poor, homeless people that we really care about with $1.7 billion. Damn, that's 505,686 each, huh? Remember that commercial on TV? Oh, we dumped the homeless. Those are flop houses at $380,000 a person. So, gee, I just go, you know, Habitat for Humanity uses container houses, okay? So I called giant containers up. Any of you all watch the CNN special last night with Gupta on stress and suicide? Notice all the suicides coming down for people losing it because all of you people don't care, especially the ones on top, huh? And all of you lawbreakers here like you, Mr. Inspector
Off topic.
General,
This is about the jail homeless.
I am talking about
program.
homeless and why it becomes with a
this is
jail.
about the
And
jail
now, so you want to try that? Let's go to your statistics here. CES referrals, 992, completed 24. Well, there's a hell of a failure. Let's go to referrals. Motel referral, 8. Shelters, 757. Other temp housing, 61. Well, you know, if you use the $65,000 for the container house, we'd have $24,000 off the street, half of the woes in the county. So, what the man said before, Mr. Spindler, about the pork-orator, damn. And when you were at LA Unified, you spent double money on construction, but you know it. Don't say you don't know who the hell I am.
Gina Viola, followed by Jonathan Foster.
Expanding resources to the LAPD for homeless folks is stealing. The LAPD has been stealing city, county, and taxpayer funds that should be used for affordable housing, mental health services, and the like. We have watched, as a city, the houseless population grow at alarming rates. The more police we add, the worse this problem gets. Now you want more funds to datify and track these incredibly vulnerable humans? Your data tracking has done nothing but lead to people being killed by police. How can we talk about the LAPD and the houseless without mentioning the houseless man, who was shot in the middle of the night by an off-duty police officer earlier this year. That should be your evidence. That should be your data to tell you that the LAPD is not capable of handling or dealing with the houseless population in any competent or productive manner. When I hear you say you want to track houseless folks, I know this ultimately means more homeless folks being killed by police.
Jonathan Foster, followed by Isaac Bryan, Reverend, and Mateo.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Foster, and thanks for going into the jail to speak to people that are homeless. And one of the messages I'd like to convey to your panel about speaking to people possibly could be what I know works and what I've seen for many homeless people working, so to speak, before they get put in jail, and maybe they can speak to the people in the jail, is a word called save. Save your money. Problem is, if you've saved $4,000 and you're in a tent, then somebody might come and steal it. So they need a bank account. Okay, and if you can work with people's inner person to save money, now they need a bank account. And what I've suggested is you can work with the people in the jail who are not mentally ill, who are competent, and you can do an iris scan, a voice print, a fingerprint. You get the card with the PIN, and now they can put money in the bank, and they're homeless. They don't have a street address. You can't get a bank account, but working with LAPD and other homeless organizations, they can do this so that whatever money they get, they can put it in the bank. And when you have money in the bank, you can do something. If you don't have any money in the bank, you can't do anything. Dealing with their interpersonal problem, I've said this before, the caffeine, the sugar, the cigarettes, the alcohol, the pot, the coke, the heroin, the crack, the methamphetamine, the 6 to 20 different prescription drugs, the inappropriate use of psychedelics, because I do appreciate psychedelics and more. So, but one of the bigger problems also, too, is that Christianity has been sued out of America by the Jew Stephen L. Engel in 1962, sued Christianity right out here, and now we got a homeless problem. So, and the personal connection to your effort with the money, and then you can get off the street, builds a sound mind. So this would help dramatically.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Chief. Mr. T. Fank, good to see you. Thank you, Commissioner Goldsmith, for elevating this to the public conversation. I know you brought this up some months back and have continued it since. I've toured this program when I was working for Mayor Garcetti. I've worked with Sergio and others to kind of look at what's happening and how it's happening. First and foremost, let me be clear, I think the administration of supportive services should always happen on the outside, if at all possible. You can't get well in a cell. That being said, 20% of LAPD bookings are houseless individuals, and that number has been increasing over the last 10 years. As arrests continue to go down, the share of houseless arrests and bookings continue to go up. And that being the case, we know that many houseless folks are not convicted of these crimes. They end up coming in for a day or two and then leaving. There may be a role for LAPD to play in connecting folks with services. To that end, I think we should keep better data in terms of how folks are getting connected to services before we administer new funding for this program. For example, we know how many women were contacted and offered services. We know how many homeless individuals, houseless individuals accepted substance abuse services. You can't tell me how many women accepted substance abuse services. We're not collecting data in a way that's efficient. We also are using the word recidivism and talking about the houseless population. Recidivism often refers to a conviction and then being reconvicted. If you're only in for a few days and then you leave, we might use a better word that humanizes folks and doesn't place it like a behavioral problem on houseless individuals. There's also a major gap in service delivery when you're released. LAPD can't transfer you to services without cuffing you, even if you haven't been convicted of any wrongdoing and have been released. We might need to look at that gap and think of ways that the city and this commission can be creative, in including rideshare partnerships or other ways that service providers can really provide services without criminalizing our houseless brothers and sisters. I'm willing to play a part in helping with this in any way that I can, and I appreciate you again for bringing this to the conversation.
Good points. Thank you, sir.
Reverend and Mateo Nagasi.
good to hear a sound analysis, because it's good to hear when truth shows up, because then the burden is upon you all to do something with it. And I hope you're going to sit with what Isaac Bryan said. That was just raw dog, flat-footed truth. And you have to sit with that and do something about it. You can't just put your head down. I don't know why y'all have this posture about yourselves where you keep putting your heads down. You shouldn't be ashamed when truth shows up. If anything, you should be excited that you have a new way to solve homelessness. Is that right? That's right. Don't you get excited when you hear a solution to your problem? Yes. Right? You should be excited. Another reason why I'm up here, because police should have no engagement with the homeless in general. I'm a United States Army veteran. Every police officer in here, I'm glad they're in here today because this is a good example. Every police officer in here has PTSD. Yep. They've been broken down. They have no kind of moral center. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. All they know is to listen to somebody above them. Yep. Tell them what to do. That's not morality. That is a robot. And if you have to tell a robot how to treat a human being, you shouldn't be in the business in the first place. Police should have no involvement with the homeless community, not the homeless, with vulnerable communities. Right. Communities that need people to have sensitivity and compassion and mercy and what? A listening ear. These bastards don't have it. He has a camera in his hand ready to incarcerate folks. Right now. He has this camera to look at people to see who he can incarcerate. Think about that, bastard.
Mateo Lagasi.
Is it this one? Hello? All right. So I cop watch. I live downtown, 8th and Spring. And so the homeless are, they're my people. They're the ones that I see every day, that I talk to, that I walk by. And so on my birthday, which was last Thursday, I cop watched 2 officers harass these 4 homeless individuals on 8th Street. And they were writing them tickets, and I kept wondering, why are you writing them tickets? What are they going to do with that? Why are you criminalizing the homeless? What do they do? Oh, they're drinking in public. Where are they supposed to drink? Where are they supposed to do drugs? Where are they supposed to piss? Where are they supposed to shit? Where are they supposed to fuck? They have no place to go. And you're citing them, right? So there's something wrong with that. So I don't understand how you can get into jail and then you get services, because I guess I've been understanding this whole process wrong. They're telling me that we give them a citation and then they go into jail and then they get help. I said, are you serious? They said, yeah. And I said, well, who called you to come out here? Whole Foods and Ralph's, because 2 of them had their carts, right? So it's just, to me, and it's not that other instance. There's another instance where they were messing around with a homeless at 1 o'clock in the morning off of Figueroa because he failed to appear. So you took him in. His bicycle was lost. He kept pleading, please don't take my stuff. Please don't arrest me. They're going to steal my stuff. So when you arrest people or cite them and have them come in, you need to bring like tractors, because you need to bring along everything that they own, right? Or just better just leave them alone.
And we have no other comment cards for this item.
Okay, this was just a review of the department's report, so we'll go on to item number 2C, which is the Secret Service Fund audit. Do we have any commissioner comments, questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comments on item 2C, which is a Secret Service Fund audit?
We have Mr. Spindler.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
We have 1 card, Mr. Spindler.
Okay.
Yes, so we're going to be very quiet with the Secret Service funds. Very quiet with
this item. I would move this item to closed session, because this item here, this is a sticky one. And apparently, from what I hear, you're shorting the Secret Service on their funds, and that's why you're doing the audit, from what I hear in the street. And they're fucking pissed. And you know, where you find this office is very interesting, Secret Service. Eileen Decker can tell you what floor in the Roybal building the Secret Service is, because the elevator don't stop there. See, all of this shit you guys are involved in, you shouldn't be involved in that right now, because number one, you shorted them the money, and number two, you got an FBI investigation of all of City Hall. So what you have to start doing is thinking, this is a closed session item. This is a very, very litigious potential liability for the city when you're cheating the Secret Service out of funds that they're entitled to, because that is really the fucked up core of all of this shit. And how do you do it? You go to the bank, somebody makes a deposit, the teller says this $100 bill's fake. They put it in a baggie. They log it into LAPD. LAPD logs it in. It goes to the SSF branch. And then you're supposed to keep it. But what happens is it gets lost. And it gets into somebody's pocket again and again and again and again. You can steal it again and again and again. But you know, the good news is that all the banks have every single note and every serial number. They know exactly how much is missing.
We have no other comment card on this item?
Okay, do we have a motion for approval of this item? Second, all in favor? Aye, anyone opposed? Okay, item number 2D is the supplemental police account fourth quarterly report, October through December 2018. Whoops, I mean E, item E. Yeah, sorry. Wait a minute, what did I miss?
You missed
I
2D.
missed D. Okay.
2D, sir.
Okay. Anyway, so let's do E first, and then we'll go back to D. Do we have any comment cards on 2E?
We have none, sir.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of 2E. Second, anyone opposed? All in favor? Okay. Item 2D, I'm sorry. This is our reclassification. Do we have any commissioner comments on 2D? Do we have any public comments on 2D?
Well, I think it would be helpful just to get a brief explanation.
Okay.
So that it's clear.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Commander Jeff Burt over Risk Management Legal Affairs Group and
Lieutenant Keith Gordon, Critical Incident Review Division.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Okay. At your request, Commissioner, this order essentially does three things. Number one, it clarifies the existing procedure that if we have a complaint related to a non-categorical use of force, we now will cut a separate face sheet. And that is consistent with the preceding manual section when you have a complaint unrelated to a use of force. So currently the manual section states if Internal Affairs does not respond and assume responsibility to take a complaint, the supervisor shall complete the use of force investigation and include the complaint info in his or her report. That was confusing, and we clarified it by simply saying if somebody, consistent with, we take all complaints, if somebody makes a complaint and it's related to the use of force, even if we have a use of force report, we take a complaint individually. That's the first thing. The second is it creates a new manual section, 830.15, and that's basically a clarifying language to reclassify a level 2 non-categorical use of force to a level 1. This came out of a 2014 Inspector General audit, recommendation number 4. They looked at non-cats and they said, hey, you have tighten your system to change once you have a level 2 use of force, non-categorical, to a level 1. And so that's all that does. And the third thing this order does is it cleans up the language describing categorical versus non-categorical uses of force. It directs Force Investigation Division or Critical Investigation Review Division to provide advice regarding, so we know who to call, and then it cleans up language defining when a CAT is not reportable. But I've looked at the existing policy versus the new. There really is no difference other than it's cleaner, tighter language.
Any other questions? Do we have any public comments on item number 2D?
2D, we have 3 common cards. We have Wayne Spindler, George Bazzetti, and Adam.
Spindler left. Mr. Pizzetti?
Spindler's gone.
This is item 2D regarding reclassification.
First of all, since 2003, y'all have been allowing a lot of illegal killings and verifying them in here is okay. Against the 2003 DOJ agreement. You see, you stupid people, corrupt people. The judge only let you off the 2001 Ramparts agreement. But because all of you corrupt people here never followed the agreement side of, yeah, you Decker, you stupid DOJ person should know this, and you joker, because both of your licenses are history. I'm sending them to this.
So you want to relate? Do you want to relate what you're talking about at all to item number 2D?
I'm relating to it.
Topic.
You just don't relate to anything because you don't want to accept responsibility for the criminal activity of your organization by allowing the illegal killing of people. Listen to me, fool.
Next speaker, please. No, you're not. You're not speaking anymore. So now you're disrupting. You're disrupting the meeting. It's your final warning. Then I'm going to ask you to leave the room.
Mr. Soberov, I am speaking to the point in which, on categorical use of force, you're breaking a DOJ agreement. Are you going to deny that such a thing exists when I have the May 18th letter from Chief Beck stating that it exists and that it's okay for the LAPD to break the law? Are you aware of that letter?
I'm going to give you your 30 seconds to go ahead.
Are you aware of the letter?
I'm not going to respond to you.
You stupid fool, well, you're going to have to deal
Okay,
with it
so
later.
you're off topic into your
The
speech.
next speaker,
Well,
Adam.
I'm not even going to let you do that crap to me, fools. I'm going to catch you public comment. You're a law-breaking fool.
Okay, I'm going to ask that he be removed from the room.
What did I do? I said down.
I gave you every warning. I gave you every warning. Sir, I'll be the one. That's what I'm supposed to do, not what you're supposed to do. So this is your last warning. Do you want to stay in the room?
You want to weigh in on it?
Okay. So I'm going to ask you both to. I'm going to ask you both to leave the
Do you
room.
want to weigh in on it?
Let me get
The
this.
city attorney can do it.
You're
but
both
you
gonna.
can't.
You're both going to leave. Both of you are going to leave the room, or we're going to recess to closed session.
But go to recess.
Well, you.
Hey,
Is every,
the city attorney has to weigh in. The city attorney has to weigh in on
Thank
it.
you.
That's the
Thank you.
law.
Thank you. Thank you for your interpretation. You can leave the room now.
And you guys being totally.
Hey, so Rob, I'll sue your ass.
You can.
Let me get my man. Hey, what's you? Hey, Mike, and I hold you responsible. The city attorney has to weigh in on it. They can't just kick people out without the city attorney.
So these guys are continuing to disrupt as they're leaving. Just point of information. Who's the next speaker?
The next speaker is Adam.
Mike, I can attach your name to it too.
Go ahead.
Don't fuck with me. I put the red back on. That mean retired. Yeah, that KKK did that. Hey.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Good morning. I was looking at this list of the following incidents that are not reportable as use of force incidents. In a crowd control situation, a use of force report is not required when officers become involved in an incident where force is used to push, move, or strike individuals who exhibit unlawful or hostile behavior and who do not respond to verbal directions by the police. I think it goes without saying that it's a little problematic that we're relying on the most murderous police department in the country to decide what is unlawful or hostile behavior from the community. And I think it's super problematic that they can push, move, or strike individuals who, up to their subjectivity, exhibit hostile behavior. We see time and time again the hostile behavior of your police force And I don't think they should be deciding what is hostile behavior by civilians and then not having to report it when they actually hit them. And the last part is really, really problematic. We saw in the use of force, the use of force report from last year. I'm thinking of 2017, how the uptick in the use of non-lethal weapons like beanbags, like tasers, projectile launchers, all this stuff that's listed here. And it says that so your officers are allowed to use these things, and as long as they don't make contact with an individual or their clothing, it's not a reportable use of force. I find that terribly problematic. I mean, you're going to have these. We have the closed session today is a shooting that the guy happened to miss, thank God. But so we're saying that the officers are okay to go out into situations and shoot a beanbag.
And we have no other comment cards on this item?
Mr. President, if I might just clarify, just for
Sure, Chief.
the board's edification, regarding a crowd control situation, as was identified by the speaker, just a clarification that, Mr. Smith, thank you. The officers are required to report those instances to their supervisor, and the supervisor does report the incident via their log. Secondly, as to the issue of a taser and its utilization and missing, not being reportable use of force, that is also an area that we're working with the Inspector General's office and the Commission relative to the future, and considering that a different, considering that a use of force or reportable use of force as we move forward.
Right.
And even in it, while not as a reportable use of force today, it is still investigated and reported on. It's just a classification issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this is, do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to number 2F, please. Do we have any commissioner questions on the Fourth Amendment to contract? I have one question on it. This looks like this is an amendment until there's a there's going to be a rebidding process. So there's not going to be a Fifth Amendment extension according to this unless they win the rebidding process. Is that the way you interpret that? That's how I read it too. Anybody here from the? Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Camarada. I'm with the contract section under FOD. The answer to your question is the intention is to not have any more extensions on this. We are doing a request for proposal, and that will include many different aspects of any of the cameras and the maintenance for those systems that we have in the department at this time.
And these people, whatever the company's name,
ASSI.
they can bid.
Yes, they
in
can.
the RFP, but
Absolutely.
it's not going. Okay, and if they win the RFP, then there might be a Fifth Amendment.
No, it would be a whole new
contract. Okay, good.
Correct.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Any public comments on this one?
We have none.
Okay, well, motion for approval. Second, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, report of the chief. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners, and my apologies first for my voice today. I've got a bit of a cold going on, so appreciate your patience with that. As to significant events, this report actually goes back to the March 5th to the March 26th time period, and given the last couple of meetings, we've not had an opportunity to have a chief's report. I want to talk about the one categorical use of force, or actually categorical reportable incident that occurred during this period of time, and that was a law enforcement related injury that occurred in the Hollenbeck area on March 13th at approximately 4:50 in the afternoon. Their uniformed officers were assigned to the Hollenbeck Division Gang Enforcement Detail when they observed a Mr. Thomas Ethan Castillo, who was loitering around the Metropolitan Transit Authority station located at First and Soto. Upon the officer's approach, Mr. Costello ran away from the officers while holding his waistband. The officers formed the opinion that Mr. Costello was armed with a weapon and chased after him through an alley. The officers caught up with him as Mr. Costello attempted to climb a metal fence and physically pulled him down, causing Mr. Costello to sustain a laceration to his left palm. He was taken into custody without further incident and transported to a nearby hospital where he was admitted to the extent of the injury to his hand, which required surgery. Force Investigation Division detectives responded and assumed investigative responsibility for the incident. As per protocol, we had a senior staff a captain on scene, as well as notification to the Inspector General's office, and FID will continue their investigation. Relative to other special events, I want to take a moment and comment on the a recurring complaint that we've had relative to the use of the X-ray machine in front. We have done, we're working hard to get the machine repaired. We've also requested for a replacement. It's a very old machine, and it's problematic. So for next fiscal year, we're asking for a new X-ray machine. Secondly, we have put in an expedited order with General Services to repair the machine. We've carried a purchase order through. I still yet to have an ETA, but we are working to get that machine repaired. We recognize the inconvenience that its current state creates for all of our guests. During this last 3 weeks, we've also conducted a number of outreach efforts. I was actually at the King Fahad Mosque 3 days before the Christchurch, New Zealand attacks and spoke at the Muslim Forum. We had about 100 people that in attendance, and we took questions ranging, wide-ranging questions relative to community safety efforts to work with the police and with our communities in a supportive manner, and also hate crimes involving Muslims and manners in which we conduct those investigations, as well as the importance of reporting hate instances. We had the 150th anniversary launch, which was at the Academy. I appreciate the Commission's support today of the approving the commemorative badge that we'll make available to both our active as well as retired employees. There's a great deal of interest in acquiring that by a number of our personnel, and as well as their participation in our yearbook celebration, taking photographs and memorializing this anniversary. The Latino Forum was held. I was joined by Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez in Pacoima. Again, a good standing of people from the Pacoima, Arleta, Sylmar area, where we talked about, again, primarily issues of community safety and partnerships with us and our problem-solving initiatives. During this incident, or during this period of time, we also had the unfortunate event at the Century City Mall, the plaza involving a gunman who set fire to some books in the Amazon store. Former disgruntled employee. I was proud of the work of LAPD personnel, Deputy Chief Eisenberg, Commander Marino, and the rest of the staff joined seamlessly with mall management and security in the initial size up of that event and orderly evacuation, as well as partnering with fire department. It was a trying day for the west side of the city in that afternoon and into the evening, attempting to ensure that there was no further risks to the public with secondary devices or other dangers that this gunman could have left. I'm also proud of the mall's work and their investment in that location, their work in establishing a state-of-the-art security system, both in their capital improvements as well as the training of their staff, proved instrumental in both the orderly work through that afternoon, while chaotic and thoughts of an active shooter and beliefs that there was an ongoing threat to thousands of people that were there. Their work with us allowed us to, I believe, ensure the best effort to minimize risks to life. I'm also proud of their work because they worked through the night, and with their work allowed us to identify the alleged gunman and alert the public to his image, and then subsequently the following day on Saturday, Venice officers from Pacific area observed him sitting on the beach, and where he was taken into custody and will be prosecuted for these alleged crimes that he committed. I am a member of the YMCA Metro Board of Directors, and their Youth and Government and Teen Excellence Leadership Dinner last week was an opportunity to see the promising future we have as a region with the up-and-coming team leaders in our various high school settings. Lastly, or two last issues, the Youth Forum last week in the Reseda at the Police Magnet Program at the Reseda Middle School, where we had about 75 young people that sat for us for a couple hours They had good pizza. I sat and watched them eat that with some temptation, but I enjoyed talking with them about the role of government, the role of policing, their future, and really the crossroads that they're in at this young age, and the importance that they maintain their character and make good decisions as they move forward into adulthood. Lastly, this past weekend, the department joined with about 10,000 other law enforcement professionals from throughout the world to do the 35th annual Baker to Vegas Memorial Run, Challenge Cup. It was a 120-mile relay race, began just outside of Baker, California, and ended in Las Vegas. And I'm proud of our teams. Our women's team placed first overall, the 9th year in a row. And our men's team came in second place. They were beat out by the country of Belize, national police there. So this is a race that draws attention from throughout the country as well as internationally. The well-ran, well-organized volunteers that allow us to conduct a very complicated relay race involving some 280-plus teams is really phenomenal. There was a number of medical transports. I'm proud to say that, and happy to say that all have been released. These suffering from heat strokes and various challenges of running in the desert, but fortunately none were serious enough to require continued hospitalization. They've all been released, and I'll move over now to the crime report. We continue to start the year well. At the end of March 23rd, our homicides are down just under 25%, with 46 homicides year-to-date versus 61 last year. We have 396 fewer violent crimes year-to-date, which represents just over a 6% reduction in violent crime. We have 1,815 fewer property crimes. We have a reduction in every category of property crime, and that's an 8% reduction, for an overall Part 1 crime reduction of 7.7%, which is 2,211 fewer victims of Part 1 crime. We have seen an increase in the last 6 weeks in our shooting violence, which has eliminated the gains that we'd seen in a reduction in shooting victims. We stand at 181 shooting victims today versus 181 last year. That is a 25% reduction from 2 years ago, but we are paying a great deal of attention to this. The areas that we've seen the increase in primarily has been in the south and central portions of the city, and we have 84 additional gang crimes this year, and the shooting violence is also in those aggravated assaults. So we're working closely with our GRID partners in our community engagement to try to quell the nature of the shooting that we're seeing in our neighborhoods. We've also reached out to the Community Coalition, COCA, and we'll be having a discussion with them tomorrow about our strategies in South Los Angeles, and also inviting their greater participation and understanding what their engagements are to help us stem this increase that we've seen, and in their involvement, particularly in the 77th area of the city. Relative to officer-involved shootings, we have had 2 officer-involved shootings this year to date. That number is versus 9 that had last year. That is a 78% reduction. We've had 1 fatal officer-involved shooting this year versus 4 last year to date. That is a 75% reduction. These are also well underneath our 4-year averages. Moving over to our traffic numbers, we have 6 fewer serious injury and death hit and run collisions, 48 versus 54. That's an 11% reduction. Our motor vehicle versus PEDs, serious injuries and deaths, are down just over 2%. That number is very small. It's a difference of 3. And our bicycle-involved collisions involving serious injuries or death are down 7. That's a reduction from 17 versus 24 last year. In regards to our personnel numbers, our sworn personnel strength stands at 10,037. Our civilian staffing is at 2,981, and our unfunded openings or vacancies in civilians stand at 426. Total reserve officers count at 387, and our cadet numbers at 1,428. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the chief this morning? Do we have any public comments on the chief's report?
We have 6 cards, sir.
Okay.
We have Jonathan Foster, Michael Novick,
Mr. Foster,
and Adam.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Foster. I think it's off topic to kill people who haven't shot at the police, personally. I think that's off topic. You haven't mentioned jazz drummer Victor McIlvaney, 21-year-old jazz drummer shot coming out of the liquor store. His mother is counsel in Oakland. You can speak up about her. Seems to me that's the same thing as Jamil Shaw. So we don't know who shot McIlvaney. So I wonder if the California Values Act that you support, which is the sanctuary city approach to California, which does kill a lot of black people, a lot of white people, kills its own Latinos, in its mindset has been completely ineffective use, even though it's not an act. I mean, before they passed this act, this was already going on this way. It's been in operation. This is how the Mexican Latinos cover for their illegal alien buddies. And then Jamil Shaw Jr. got shot down, gunned down. And it's baffling how people speak up about this, and then the very same people that support the illegal aliens say this isn't happening. I will have to wait for the possible arrest to see who did this, but to McIlvaney and another wonderful young black man with an awesome future, making really good money, did he also get killed by this mindset? And the Jamil Shaw family, all the income they're losing because the LAPD wants to take a stance that it's not going to turn over illegal aliens. And it's always well, we released him from Culver City, but he was actually shot in Los Angeles. And nobody did a damn thing. Antonio Villaraigosa is a criminal piece of crap, just like Toilet Garcetti.
Next speaker, please.
Michael Novick. Michael Novick, followed by Adam.
Stay right here. So, in this very long report that was 3 weeks long, because Steve chose to shut down this meeting a couple of times, I heard you spend more time on the Baker run than you did on the armed person that lit a fire in the Amazon store at the Century City Mall. And we brought this up last week when talking about Grishario Mack, but what I'm trying to get together in my head is that report that you submitted last week regarding his murder at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. You found your officers to be totally in policy. That was your recommendation. And then this week we hear you praising Captain Eisenberg and the police officers in Century City that, carefully evacuated this mall. And I feel like there's a disconnect between being okay with your officers rushing in with an automatic rifle and shooting a black guy in the middle of a crowded mall that didn't have a gun or wasn't lighting a fire and actually, by witness accounts, wasn't being threatening to anybody. How that's okay, but then also it's a good move to evacuate the mall. I just think that there's a obvious way that the police, your police department, treats black people, treats folks in South Central versus how they're being treated in Century City. The deference to what safety is in Century City versus what safety is in South Central, where this person had to be gunned down and you found that to be okay, but in Century City, let's get
Gina Viola, followed by Hamid Khan and Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Oh, those are the final three on this?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm just going to follow up to Adam's comments, and honestly, I have to ask the question. Why did you not evacuate the Crenshaw Hills Mall? I seriously want an answer to that.
Again, I'm going to avoid going back and forth, but I encourage you to read the entire report relative to the incidents at Baldwin Hills and the actions of the officers, including patrons and their efforts to safeguard those patrons. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think it's plain to see that when something happens in Century City, white people get protected immediately. They get evacuated, they get protected. When it happens in South Central, LAPD goes in guns blazing. Doesn't matter who's in the way.
Next speaker.
Hamid Khan, please.
Mr. Khan.
So we had an earth-shattering, as Akili was saying, this report from the chief of the police about pizza and everything else. I just want to circle back and bring us back to the audit that was released on March 12th, and the failure.
Sir, I just have a question. I just want to stop it. Are you addressing the commission or are you addressing the audience?
I'm addressing people. I'm addressing people.
I can't hear what he's saying. Can you let me hear what he's saying? What?
Can you stop my clock?
Yeah, I did. I can't hear what he's saying.
So,
are you addressing the commission or are you addressing the audience?
Steve, listen to what I'm saying.
I'm just asking the question.
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm speaking in the goddamn mic. Can you hear?
I understand that. Are
Okay,
you
so
or
I'm speaking
are you
in the
addressing
mic.
the audience?
So sit down and listen to what I'm saying.
So you're not answering the question?
Yes, I'm addressing everybody in this commission.
Okay, good. Then go ahead.
So, but I don't want to look at you because you're so gross. So, we have to bring it back that how there's an old saying that fish rot from the head down, right? Nowhere in this audit, the glaring disparities that it show, and you won't hear more talk about it, that his officers, his command staff was instructing officers to create reasonable suspicion standards, right? His officers were putting people into chronic offender programs with 0 points. Imagine that. Imagine if you were one of those persons and all of a sudden you're in a chronic offender program with 0 points. Remember 2014 when 92 patrol cars, the officers intentionally broke the antennas on the dash cams? Yeah. Complete silent. Not a word over there. And another thing, as a chief, you would think that a program has been in place for 10 years, there would be some internal investigation. So what do we have? The program launches in 2009. Up until 2017, there are not a single protocol in place. Not a single protocol. The only 2 reports that we saw were both from JSS, who have contracts, who are paid consultants, and Predpol, who are paid consultants as well. Nowhere in Chief's report he speaks about conflict of interest. So I think we need to really start looking at these things when they bring these audits, when they bring these investigations, that what exactly is going on in the department, because we hold the chief directly responsible. And now we are finding out that people are being murdered in laser zones. Right. Keith Bursey, Richard Risher, Jesse Romero, in and around laser zones. So they have blood on their hands because of this.
Is that the last speaker on?
Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Okay. Ms. Autry?
Colleague Hamid Khan has just said, I was born in Inglewood, and Inglewood PD, as the LAPD, has the history of excessive use of force, police brutality, and abuse of authority, especially perpetrated in the black community of Inglewood. I was born there 52 years ago, and I was always raised and instructed, to beware of the Inglewood PD. I think only LAPD has exceeded that level of blatant racial profiling in targeting black youth. As a black woman, I grew up with that. That's when the murders of black women were not publicized. The Grim Reaper murders, the Strawberry murders had preceded this prosecution a few years ago because of Bernard Parks, because I, called crazy, had been instructed by my mother to beware because women, only black women, were found decapitated and dismembered, and no one reported that but the final call. And I'm a Christian, I'm not Muslim. If it was a blonde white woman or Hispanic or an Asian, I'm sure that they would have been publicized, and I'm not a racist. This is just status quo in America. So again, I'm speaking against that, and I don't watch television, but I've seen whenever there's a non-black person who is being pursued by the police officers, I've seen this. You pursue them. One was in the valley. I think he was a Jewish man, Iranian, and I'm not a racist, but he was not black. And the police pursued him for miles, gently touched his car. He ran, they subdued him, and very gently handcuffed him. If it was a black person, male or female, they would have been shot 50 million times, and then claimed that there was some assault on the police officer. Yeah, and stop coughing. Ain't nothing wrong with you. You respect me. See, this is why people don't like you. I give you the benefit of the doubt, and you disrespect me.
Okay, do we have any other speakers? You can come back. You can come back during public comment. Okay, so let's move to public comments. Thank you. You're being disruptive to the meeting. I'm going to ask you to stop being disruptive to the meeting. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to public comment. I'm going to ask you to leave the room. Can you escort her out of the room, please? Thank you. Thank you. You can escort her out of the room. Okay, let's go to public comment.
We have 11 public comment cards. We have Jonathan Foster.
Mr. Foster.
Michael Novick.
So
Gina
the
Viola.
record will reflect that she's continuing to disrupt the meeting while she's being escorted out. Mr. Foster, are you going to speak or are you going to waive your time? No, come on, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir. Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, Jonathan Foster, and welcome to the LAPD corruption meeting. That word needs to say corruption. How many killed by illegal aliens? Trust me,
Mr. Smith, would you want to go out or are you staying in? Is he disrupting the meeting, officer? Yes, he is. Okay. Mr. Smith, you want to sit down or you want to be escorted out? Yes. You don't want any witnesses? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. How many LAPD were killed by illegal aliens again? What's the answer?
This is public comment. It's your turn.
Yeah, I'm asking how many LAPDs were killed by illegal aliens. They're not telling us. And how much money are you taking with you after you die? None. That's right. And you're doing nothing with it when you're here. Attention, the two officers that shot Rosario Mack. I advise your lawyers to sue the LAPD for poor, inaccurate, incomplete training and how this training has destroyed your life and placed you needlessly into a position of being a murderer, and how this unsound training could have been improved 35 years ago and never has because leadership is corrupt. And they never take proper steps that would produce the necessary change. I want to know that the end reason for, I want these officers to know that the end reason for you having a really big problem of becoming a murderer is because Israeli Jews want to chop off a bull's head in a temple that still has to be built over in a foreign land that has zero allegiance to you and your life, these two officers. So every effort that could have protected them and Rosario Mack, it all went to fake Israel. And this place is satanic. I wouldn't have known unless I came down here how satanic this place is. This commission, this police corruption crap, it's satanic. You're satanic. I never ever want to be around you again. And I'm throwing a party before you die called The Sober Off is Dead.
Gina Viola, followed by Adam.
Will you stop disrupting the meeting, please? Friedman or whatever your name is. Okay, we'll see you.
I too want to talk about the audit. I want to quote from Tiff Guerrera from the LAPD, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. LAPD wants us to believe data-driven policing, surveillance, predictive analytics, and the use of programs like PredPol, Laser, and CSOC are race-neutral and will be more efficient. In reality, these programs reinforce racist practices and lead to more money being spent on increasingly oppressive layers of technology and surveillance, while communities lack basic resources and access to clean air, land, water, as well as services and spaces that are critical to healthy communities. So I just want that on the record as we're in the process of whether we're going to accept the audit as is, and obviously would like that program shut down. I also want to talk about the treatment of Grosario Mack's family here and through this process. As a result of the interaction between the LAPD family liaison and Grosario Mack's family, we believe that an unarmed, better trained, more sensitive position should be created by this commission. The officer who was assigned to this family added to the family's anxiety and participated in communication that was not relevant or helpful. The LAPD needs to hire social workers to communicate with families that have been murdered by police. Not an armed officer with a poor attitude. Families are already suffering and in shock. This further leads to what happens to them as the trauma just continues. It's bad enough that they're forced to come here to a room full of hostile officers and, frankly, often hostile commissioners arguing with people in the room, sometimes even family members of people killed by police. Families of people killed by police need another way to receive and give information to this commission. If my child were killed by the LAPD, I feel certain that I would be able to sit with any one of you at any time to discuss it.
The next speaker, Adam, followed by Audrey George and Victor Trujillo.
What a world. Steve, I think you should step down from the police commission. I don't say that just because, like, I don't have any respect for you and think you're like racist and all of these terrible things. I like sitting here every day. You fumble through the agenda. People are always correcting you. You don't know where you are in terms of like on the agenda. And I don't know if it's like, I just assume you don't care. But also you're a racist, so I don't think you really belong at the head of the police commission. I do think that this meeting should be held somewhere that's more accessible to folks that are impacted by policing. Not at 9:30 in the morning, not at the same time as the Sheriff's Oversight Commission, at the same time as the Board of Supervisors, at the same time as LA City Council. I think this is by design so that folks aren't able to show up to all the meetings that they, should be able to. I lost my train of thought. Did I tell you you're racist, Steve? Did I say that?
No, but you told me I lose my train of thought every once in a while.
Oh, okay. But yeah, someone that failed as a mayor, as a mayoral candidate that was against the federal consent decree, and as soon as the consent decree went down in 2013, Garcetti appointed him the president of the police commission. Just doesn't make sense.
Next speaker, please.
Audrey George, followed by Victor Trujillo and Jamie Garcia.
So my comments are concerning the predictive policing audit report. And when I'm done, I'm hoping, Mr. Smith, that you will comment for us about why this report did not cover the SAR program, as had been, the commitment had been to audit that program as well. And I want to draw your attention to this report that Stop LAPD Spying Coalition put out last May, before the bullet hits the body. And that was just before they made their amazing, very impressive and informative presentation to the Police Commission last July. When you look at this title, before the bullet hits the body, think about what that means. That before you kill people, all sorts of things are happening. And they're happening in large part because of predictive policing. Because predictive policing sends cops out there expecting the worst from the people it encounters, expecting criminalization, expecting that because they're in certain areas of the city, they are criminals, period. And because they are black and brown, even more so. I want to also ask you about the secrecy of why you terminated the laser program without telling anyone. Was it just fun to listen to us come week after week and tell you how awful it was when you knew that it wasn't even in effect anymore? And when you consider approving the report, as you are likely to do, please remember that this report was prepared by JSS. JSS presented to you only select months and areas as evidence of its success. JSS presents only results that they want to be associated with the program, because as long as they convince you that you need this program, JSS will benefit financially from its.
Mr. President, if
Sure.
if acceptable, I can hopefully clarify something for the commission for the audience with regard to
Inspector
OIG and
General.
the SARS report. Thank you for your question. The Office of Inspector General has what I understand to be a standing requirement to conduct annual audits of the department's SARS program. When I came into this position, I wasn't aware of that requirement. And upon learning of it, I asked, what's our status currently in doing those reviews? And I learned that I think we were a year or two behind in conducting those reviews. And I said, well, let's bring ourselves current. We're currently working on calendar years, reviewing the SARS programs for 2016 and 17 to bring us more current. We did have to pause that activity a little bit as we worked separately on the data-driven report, but we're back to the SARS review now. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to produce results on both of those within roughly about 6 weeks from now. That's an estimate, and I need to work with staff, but that's my goal. Then we still need to bring current the following year, 2018. It'll take us a little bit longer. I didn't want to hold up the other previous years to do so, so that will come later on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Victor Trujillo. I actually came here because I've been hearing all the brutalities. I've been arrested many times, and 99% of those times were deliberately. It took me 47 years to realize it. 42 years ago, in 1977, I was thrown in the street, and the LAPD was involved. I found the names of the officers that actually helped put me away. I finally got it from contacts from Mexico, and he works for the LAPD. And no offense to Silva, their brothers. His name is Rafa Silva. He's sitting in Michoacan. For over 40-something years, he's been working with the LAPD and with the cartels. And they, bloodbath, literally. They killed my brother. When they murdered my brother, I was in the room. When I was hiding in the closet when I heard two LAPD. I went to Consumer first. They covered it up. And he was laughing at my brother's body. He was kicking it. Pieces of his head flew out towards the closet. When the ambulance walked in, I ran out real quick and I grabbed one of them. I said, please don't let me go. And we walked out and I told the cop, 9 more, huh? He knew exactly the numbers of brothers I had. He knew everything. There was time in 87 when I got brutally tortured by a detective and I took a home invasion. As I beat the guy up, I was going to be sentenced for 28 years for beating someone up, protecting my life. I actually put Mission College on the map. No one knows about that. Nobody even knows who did it, whose idea was it. Basically, in 1993, a cop beat the fuck out of me, put a gun in my mouth, tried to kill me, didn't do it. In 2010, a cop from LAPD, he pulled me over. He said he did. He put a gun to my head, tried to kill me. I knew he was trying to kill me that night. My uncle told me not to go, and I never told nobody. I went to a Foothill Division to tell them name of the cops, name of the families. They told me, go to Consumer Affairs, cover up. Well, now I got the blood. I got the money. I got everything.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Jamie Garcia, followed by John Avalos and Isaac Bryan.
Are those final 3 speakers in public comment or no?
There are 5 left.
Okay.
So I kind of want to take us back to what Audrey was speaking about.
in August of 2018 how the program was suspended. This is the Chronic Offender Bulletin was suspended. And, there was a lot of outrage that happened at that point. We had the presentation, but shortly thereafter, on November 14th, the budget came up. And so I really want to talk about the commission's role now, because we knew that the Chronic Offender Bulletin was suspended. I'm assuming you are aware, unless LAPD also kept it from you, which shouldn't be what's happening because you're actually in charge of LAPD. So I'm assuming you knew as well. So part of strategic goal number 1, Initiative C, was to expand data-driven policing. We were at that meeting. We said there's an audit that's happening. We said it's a very critical audit because these programs have been in effect for 10 years, that you need to not pass a budget to expand these programs. Yet multi-millions of dollars were passed for the records management system. Multi-million dollars were passed for Palantir. So in the process of knowing that this program is completely defunct, that it's been suspended, you continue to pass money. Then we had December 18th, where you accepted another $35,000 to expand the CSOC, which we know is very much a crucial component of the LASER program. So you're all very complicit in this, in the fact that Predpol couldn't even be audited. You're expanding money for records management system. Follow me now, because these are how these programs work. That he couldn't even audit the program because dosage couldn't even be accurately quantified. But yet we're pushing through monies, right? And that's why we warned you. We said, don't pass the money because he's auditing the program. And now you're the fool. Now you are the people that expanded money on a program that we can't even figure out if it's working, that he abandoned the process. And so then we kind of move into anchor points, which weren't even brought up.
We'll go to the next speaker, please. Who's the next speaker?
John Avalos.
Mr. Avalos. Thank you. Thank you. Can you please stop disrupting the meeting?
If you please talk with the sergeant back there about your specific requests, I'll make sure that we're
Thank you. I've asked you to stop disrupting the meeting. Please stop disrupting the meeting. I'm saying please. It's your last warning of disrupting the meeting, or I'm going to ask you to leave the meeting. Okay, officers, you can escort her out. Thank you. You've been disrupting the meeting. Thank you.
There in the
next speaker, please.
He'll accompany you out. He'll accompany you out.
When you go out of the room, maybe the officer will go out of the room with you. Morning, sir.
Testing.
You want to shove me out of the room, you can, but you know it's
Let the record reflect you're continuing to disrupt the room and disrupt the meeting when we've asked numerous times for you to please leave the room and please stop disrupting the meeting. Okay.
This whole display
Thank you.
is making you look like a fool because it's because of us that you all
You're continuing to disrupt the meeting.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Hi, everybody. John Avalos. That's one long word. John Avalos. My last name is Rios. I'm the chair of the committee to dismantle the LA Police Commission. Just like a figment of my imagination. But I am doing research. It's really hard to do research. We are asking around, how can we dismantle this? How can we redo this commission? Because it shouldn't even have Board of Police Commissioners. It should just say LA Police Department. The city charter, so far the research that I'm finding in the city charter says nothing about the meetings being like this. All it says is that there's 4 people to be appointed by a mayor. And it doesn't specify that the meeting is going to be a police department meeting. That's what this is. It's not a civilian oversight. we should come here to the police department meetings, which we've been doing, and the commission should be meeting in the community, but they can't meet in the community because they have to have all these rotating groups of officers every 10 minutes, rotating over there, the line of officers. How are you going to go to the community with that? So I understand why after 3 years that I've been coming, we've been asking for you to move your meetings to the community, and you don't. And I'm glad he brought up the federal consent decree. I remember that's why they brought in a commission, because of that consent decree. I must do some more research on that one. Why can I not do live Wi-Fi? Who's in control of destroying the Wi-Fi thing here so that we can't do live Wi-Fi? Why can't I do live Wi-Fi here? You gotta know, Michael Moore. Somebody is doing this. Somebody's ruining it. I've been coming for so long, and I cannot do live Wi-Fi on Facebook. What's up with that? You don't know that?
Next speaker, please.
Isaac Bryan, followed by Hamid Khan. And we have 2 late cards, sir.
Take the full 2 minutes. I don't come to these very often. Didn't plan on staying for the whole one here. One thing I will say is I know that it gets contentious on both sides. What I can say is my adrenaline spikes when 7 people come through that door to escort a woman out, right? There's something about that feels like an escalation, and I just wanted to let y'all know that it's difficult seeing that, even if she's not touched, or thinking if she is touched, then do I stay seated because there are officers telling you to stay seated? But if I don't stay seated, then what might happen? And do I have enough commissioners looking out for me that if I got involved, then I won't get taken out? You know, it's a lot. Anyway, I mostly came up here because I think we need to continue the conversations about the Metro Division. Chief, I know we are going to continue those conversations, and I'm just going to do the commission a courtesy. I did the chief the same courtesy in the community. The $1 Million Hoods Project is going to be releasing a report on the Metro Division next week. I implore this commission to look at that report. I know there's a lot of respect and credibility for that UCLA project. I know that the mayor's office will look at that report. I know the community will mobilize around that report, and I hope that it makes it into this setting in a very serious conversation about the efficacy of an elite unit, depending on how we operationalize elite. Often seen as a hammer, a unit that has jurisdiction of the whole city, but seems to only operate in South LA, in South Central. I think we need to have that conversation. I will credit Chief for having those conversations already, and I think next week when that report drops, I hope that it's revived and elevated by this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hamid Khan, please.
Give me 1 second.
Are they going to put you out?
I guess so. Let me just.
Just make sure to talk in the mic and stare at Steve.
We should probably leave now.
There is a. Okay.
Take your time.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just wanted to read something to you from, and I don't know, Eileen Decker and Shane Goldsmith, if you had a chance to look at people's response to the audit, because it's a very telling document. It's a 4-page document, and we'll resend it because we plan to send you another letter as well. And what it states is that while the Inspector General audit does reveal and exposes a whole lot of flaws, although it failed on lifting the human and civil rights violation of the community, but it's also something that we've been saying all along, and I don't know, consciously or inadvertently, it illustrates that, and I'm going to read that what it illustrates is that the story of data-driven policing is not just a story about the emergence of an ostensibly new mode of practice, nor is it simply a story about the collusion among police, academia, and profit-driven private enterprise. It is also a story about who has the power to produce knowledge. And I'm going to say it again. It is also a story about who has the power to produce knowledge. A story about how the racialized other is created and then targeted for dispossession and death, about the very story of colonization. And I'm going to go into the next piece. The data-driven policing programs deconstruct black bodies and their spatial movements into data points to be harvested and indeterminately stored. At any future time, these data may be then extracted, expropriated, queried, cross-referenced, rearranged, edited, and fused, abstracted entirely from their original context in order to retroactively construct a coherent and detailed narrative regarding which persons, populations, behaviors, and spaces are criminal, threatening, and require policing. That's at the heart of data-driven policing. It is about production of knowledge. It is about harvesting that knowledge, and it's about very methodically recreating our being, recreating that which populations are threatening, recreating that which populations are to be predicted as criminal, and pathologized and demonized forever. This is your time.
Okay. Next. Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker, Alvin, followed by Akili.
Who's the next speaker? Take your time, sir. Good morning.
I just like to say that all my life I've respected. I would find it very difficult to be a policeman in a city like this with such enormous problems. I just like to say that I don't understand why such violent, excessive use of force is taken. In Staten Island, New York, there was a man, big guy, who was selling
Time, sir.
Cigarettes on the street. Big guy. You could tell he was intellectually challenged. Police, 2 or 3 members of the NYPD stopped him. They said, "We're going to take you to jail," because he was upset and afraid, because once he would be taken to the police station, that would be the end of him in certain ways. They attacked him, got him down on the ground, and suffocated him. Why such excessive force? You need a guy selling cigarettes. Seems to me the police could have started an easier way. If he wanted to run away, should allow him to they should allow people to do that. They could get him any other time. But to make such a violent public attack on this big lug, they choked him and he died. I just think that a new way of instructing policemen to deal with problems. I know the problems are very tough, you know. There should be some way to instruct police. There wasn't any need for four police officers to get the guy on the, do what they did. That's all I have. Seems to me all these things about your each member in this panel is bad. That doesn't do any good, and it's probably not true. But you should have some way to instruct policemen. They don't have to grab a guy who obviously didn't mean any harm and do what they did to him.
Thank you, sir.
We have no other comment cards on general public comment. We're on item number 5. We have 2 cards.
Oh, I think we have one more.
I want to echo and amplify, if I could, Gina's point. I think it is the height of insensitivity, and it's incredulous that he would appoint
a officer as the family liaison. I mean, that is beyond comprehension to me. The same people who killed your family member, you got to talk to. You don't trust them, and you can't believe them, and you're asking that person to be a liaison. I remember coming here in the days when I could come here and fighting for the family of Waukesha Wilson to make sure that they were notified properly. Had I known that you all would be insensitive enough to appoint a police officer, I would have opposed it then. I'm opposing it now. I'm amplifying and trying to suggest you may want to try to act and grab some sensitivity and appoint a social worker, somebody who is trained to do this, not a police officer, a part of the same institution that killed their people. That does not make any sense. And I would have thought the more brighter of us would have said, wait a minute, before you do that, let's try to find somebody who is more skilled. So I would ask you to try to find somebody more skilled and at least project like you have some sensitivity.
We're now on item number 5. We have 2 public comment cards. We have Adam and Victor Trujillo.
Okay. This is 5A1?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So here we're talking about the shooting of a Mr. Palencia, speaking of the family liaison unit, Akili. So even though this person thankfully wasn't hit with a bullet, you would think maybe they would reach out to the family and reach out to him. But the problem, too, is it's not just that it's an officer, Akili. I mean, Officer Wilkins has a history. He shot a dog in 2013, so he has actually used his gun in the community before, and this is who they have talking to families. But I'm wondering if this shooting of Palencia, Hamid, was in a laser zone, because these are Metro officers driving down 55th and I forget what street, but if this was a laser zone, these are gang enforcement detail. They say these guys look like gang members and it ends in a shooting. Luckily, he wasn't hit. But this is the type of things that we're getting to know Metro Division does. Racially profile and go after people with guns.
Victor Trujillo.
Good morning, board. Hi, my name is Victor Trujillo. I find it very disturbing, you know, what this man just said, and he's right. It's so true. We're ignoring how the process of honesty works. You know, I'm the guy who's been tortured all my life. You know, and I really, really, really feel for you guys because, you know what? You guys can cover anything. I got 47 years. I got 2 white men, sons of cops, that are murdered from LAPD. And I'm going to hand that information. No, it isn't. It isn't.
So why don't you stay on topic?
I'm showing how this type of criminal stuff, I knew you guys were not going to help me. So I'm going to feed this information to the same people I had to go and reach out to because I said, you know what? This is a terrorist job. So I have to listen to you because you got to remember, I've been hearing impaired all my life. I know exactly how to look at this thing. But if you guys say you're going to help people, act like it. Act like a helper of God. Act like a community.
Mr. President, the speaker's
no
off topic.
Being taken care of. No one's being released
Let's go
from
to
their
closed
job.
session.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 5A1 in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Commission is back from closed session. As to item 5A1, the commission adopted the chief's recommendations unanimously. Madam Vice President, that concludes the report out.
Very good. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Very good. The commission stands adjourned. Thank you.